Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name's Keith. What I'm doing with Christian Warrior is I'm doing training that I normally do in the classroom for my church security team. And I'm instead moving it online so that way my team can watch it online, but also so that your security team can get some hints and uh, tips to make your church security team a little bit better. All right. So in this session, we're going to talk about surveillance, meaning a suspicious person is coming into the church and we want to watch that person, but we also want to keep an open and welcoming church as well. So we're worried about the safety of our parishioners. We're also worried about interfering with that person's ability to come to Christ and to worship Christ and to enjoy the church. So we're going to talk about the best way that you can do that. Some of the ways that you can handle surveilling them and watching them while he goes through the church. So where did all this come from? I'm a retired police officer that spent a majority of my career working drug-related crimes and drug investigations. So I've done a lot of surveillance. It was a big part of my everyday work. I was also a SWAT team member for 20 years. So if you want to know a little bit more about Christian Warrior Training and where we come from, hit like, hit subscribe, go back to our channel, look at the intro page on our channel where we do a bigger introduction about what we're about and what we're doing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about surveillance in the church. First, we want to do a little bit of Bible study, right? So we are called to love and welcome all people, but we also want to make sure that we have a responsibility to the congregation to make sure that nobody hurts anybody under our care, right? Now, Matthew 25 to 36 reminds us that we are called to extend hospitality to those in need, including strangers. Now, if we do surveillance that interferes with that person to feel welcome at the church, well, then we're not doing very good job, right? We can still surveil people and nobody would ever know that we're there if we do it the right way. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about doing it the right way. 1 Peter 5:8, it warns us to be vigilant and protect ourselves from harm. That's what we're going to do. We're going to show you the balance of watching a suspicious person while we keep an open church and let everybody feel free. And nobody knows that we were there. Nobody knows what we were doing. We want to remember our trust in God. As Christians, our ultimate trust is in God's protection and provision. So while we're taking practical measures to ensure safety, we also have to rely on God's sovereignty to protect us. Creating a safe environment in your church, surveillance is that key tool. We want to create that open environment so people can come and receive Christ in their lives. How we're going to do that? Video surveillance is one of the best things that you can do. Now, a lot of you guys watching this are in little churches where you don't need video surveillance because you can literally see everything from the front door. And then like my church is big. We're in the thousands during worship over the weekend. With each service, we can have well over 1,000 people in a very large building that was added upon over time. And that those additions make it very difficult to protect. So we have surveillance cameras. My personal opinion, I think one of the most critical posts in the security team is that video surveillance and watching, because you can see so much more. It's a force multiplier. You can see so much more with only one person, and that person could direct others to go look at something that is more suspicious, right? Now, we all remember that all people are created in the image of God and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, even those people who are suspicious or unknown to us and deserve to be welcome and shown Christ's love. As a former narcotics detective, I do see a lot of people come into our church that are obviously drug users. They are people that if I was on patrol and driving down the street, I would probably stop them to just see what they're doing and check their sobriety and just do a normal police contact because they're probably more involved with criminal activity than anybody else. But they are coming into the church. I have seen people that are high. I have seen people that are obvious drug users. I want them to come into the church. This is the first step in them coming to Christ and changing their lives for the better. Should we watch them? Yes, you're still going to watch them, but you don't want to interfere with them coming to Christ. So if you are making it obvious and do this, I call it the surveillance train. It's where everybody is following this guy as he walks through the church. Everybody knows what's going on. Don't do that. So we're going to give you tips and tricks to get around that. So one of the first things that happens with surveillance is surveilling and looking at things and noticing things that you wouldn't normally notice. So I was also a sniper team leader, and I was a sniper instructor, and I taught other law enforcement snipers. One of the things that we did was something called the KIMS game, is keep in memory system. It helps people memorize things a little bit better and be a little bit better at recognizing stuff. So normally in my live session, I break everybody up into their teams that they normally work. Now you're watching this on YouTube, so I doubt you're with your team. So you're by yourself watching this. No big deal. We want you to go ahead and I want you to look at the picture that we're going to show you. I want you to try to memorize everything. Once you have it all memorized, then you have 15 seconds to look at it. When the 15 seconds is up, then I want you to go back and I want you to write out everything that was there and try and draw a diagram of what you saw. So here we go. We're going to look at the picture. You have 15 seconds. All right. Ready? We'll keep that up for 15 seconds while you look at it. It'll go by pretty quick. You got 4 seconds, 2 seconds. All right. That's it. I gave you a little bit of extra time. What I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and pause the video and write down everything that you saw. And I know some of you don't want to do this, but do it. Write it down, write down what you saw, and then go ahead and replay the video. All right. So going back to our picture, how close were you, what you wrote down to what you actually saw? Now you should be off a little bit. So one of the things that happens is somebody suspicious will come in. They'll not come into church. They'll just be goofy as heck and then walk out the door and then get in their car and drive away. And they'll say they're driving away. And we'll ask, hey, what was the license plate? Oh, I don't know. I didn't get that. Well, what did the car look like? Uh, I don't know. What did he look like? Oh, let's go back, look at the video and see what he looked like. Nobody can, no, and there's varying descriptions of what this guy looks like. There's very minimal. Oh, it was a two-door car that was foreign. And it turns out it was like a four-door Chevy truck. I do this keep in memory system game, the KIMS game. I like doing this to people because it's forcing people to be observant. It's a great way to make people just start memorizing stuff. And it's something that you need for surveillance because eventually you're going to have to go back. One of the things that we do is rewrite an intel bulletin. So we're actually we're going to have an intelligence officer on our team. And his job is to look at all these, the suspicious people coming in. Like, as an example, we had somebody come in that was seeking out one of our pastors and then would leave, and they were fixated on they had mental illness. Well, when we looked into it, turns out they're on parole for violence against children, and she was targeting the children's pastor. So obviously alarming, and we want a bulletin about that. So that's what the intelligence officer does on our team is they pull all that data, create a nice little file so we can put it up and show like, hey, this person, they're fixated on our youth pastor and they harm children. You should probably watch that person, right? That KIMS game helps us remember that stuff and remember those critical details. So why do we do surveillance overall? Well, prevention of crime, right? One of the primary reasons for surveillance is to deter and prevent criminal activity. The biggest thing that you're going to have on your team is not an active shooter. Certainly we want to prepare for that, but the biggest problem you're going to have is people breaking into the church, people breaking into cars, damaging, vandalizing church property, and it's surveillance that prevents those crimes. There was a recent active shooter at a church school. At that church school, the active shooter did surveillance of multiple locations and chose this one church school because they didn't have good security or surveillance in place, and it was easy for that person to go kill those children. So your church, by having good surveillance, you are going to get seen. It does deter other crime as well. The biggest crime that we have going on right now is somebody is breaking into cars during church services in my area. And so we're surveilling the parking lot looking for that, right? You want to enhance safety and security. Surveillance can help identify potential threats to safety and security. You're going to do it to gather evidence, right? For us, the lady that came in that was fixated on our youth pastor, well, she's on parole and she was violating her parole in what she was doing. And she wasn't trying to come to Christ. She was trying to harm one of our people. The stuff that we got helped us gather that evidence for the parole officer to make a decision on what to do. We have monitoring operations, like surveillance could be used to monitor operations in different settings, like the entrance to your children care ministry, right? What happens if you have a guy that shows up every time, 5 minutes before, and it's obviously he's staking out and looking at the kids, or that active shooter, right? The active shooter that was coming and doing surveillance, and you see that like a lot of our suspicious people, they come at the same time at the same service. They don't attend service. They just come in, they look around. Now that could be because they're nervous and want to come to Christ. Well, I make contact with those people and just say, "Hey, how are you? What can I do for you?" And I act like a church greeter and try to help them. And I am trying to help them, but I'm also trying to figure out, are you going to hurt my people? It's a fine balance. If you want to do pre-surveillance, right? If there's a potential for danger, you want to consider calling the police department ahead of time. A good example is we brought in a visiting pastor to come in and speak, and the topic was very, let's just say, it's spicy. It was something that would draw an alternative crowd to come protest us, right? So we did set up surveillance to watch that pastor when he came in and to watch the outside. Was it worth calling the police department? No. There was a church in our area that was protested by the Satanic Church, and they showed up with rifles. If you know they're coming ahead of time and you know that they're going to be there, I would call the police department to say, "Hey, we know the Satanic Church is going to come protest us." And the last time they showed up with long guns. Now, how would you surveil those people with that with long guns? They're coming to protest your church. How I would do it, I don't know if my church would go for it or not. I have a lot of retired police officers, a lot of current police officers. A lot of us have experience on SWAT. How I would do that is if I know that the Satanic Church through social media, they said we're going to come protest this church, I would come out before they're expected to come. I would be in cars surveilling the parking lot. And then as they come in, I would start recording them. I would start writing down license plates, information on them. And as my people came to church, because people are going to come into church, you shouldn't stop church because the Satanic Church showed up with rifles. Still come to church, but you're going to surveil those people so that if somebody does something stupid on their side, we can stop it. We can also interact with the police and let the police know, hey, we're surveilling them. We would like you to be there. And then maybe they can actually take our place so we don't have to do that. So you have to think to yourself, if you know this is coming ahead of time, what am I going to do to prepare for this, right? You want to discuss and pre-plan with your team and your church leadership to make sure they're okay with what you're doing. And you want to have all your equipment ready. What do you need? You're going to need radios, right? Now, I recommend that you have your own channel. Our church recently went to our own channel. We got it through the FCC. It was very cheap. I know some of you are very much into radios and know the process. If you know the processes, put it in the comments below so that way other people can see that. You want to have your own radios that are secure just to your team. You want to have binoculars. You want to have a notepad so you can write notes down. I use my phone and I use my recorder and I record what I see. And then video surveillance if you need it. Some do's and don'ts. You want to wear clothing that blends in. Now, right now, I'm wearing a hoodie, and this would blend in with my church. Okay, at my church, we have everything from suits to I am in Idaho, so we have people show up in cowboy hats and cowboy western wear, and we have everything in between. We have people that show up in shorts and flip flops. That God just wants you to come to church. Doesn't care how you dress, right? But if I'm in a church where everybody normally wears suits, then that's what I'm going to wear when I'm working the security team and surveillance because I'm blending in with everybody else. Now, sometimes when I work church security, I will wear this because it covers my gun, my radio, my less lethal. It covers everything that I have. We do recommend that you wear something visible that shows your security, like a vest or something that says security. So when the cops show up for an active shooter, that they don't hurt you. With that said, if you know you're going to have to do surveillance, you just want to blend into the crowd and look like a parishioner. Okay, so don't act like security. Like talking. Like bring the lapel mic up. Yeah, he's walking over here. That's him. You see him right there? That guy. That guy. Yeah, go follow him. You don't want to look like that. Okay, so don't bring that microphone up to your mouth. Keep it surreptitious. I keep a microphone. I run it up my shirt, and it's clipped underneath. And I can literally just hold it up and I can talk like this and I can keep looking straight ahead and talk. But you don't want to get burned because ultimately, most of the time when I've seen church security teams calling out suspicious people, they're just odd and they're coming to Christ. And we're interfering with that through our surveillance and making them uncomfortable. And we don't want to do that. Surveil them, Don't freak them out so they don't go come to Christ, okay? And don't follow too closely. Don't do that train where we follow them everywhere they go, right? It's like it reminds me of bunch ball with kids playing soccer, right? Where they're running all over the place. We don't want that. We have fixed surveillance. Now, a majority of our surveillance is gonna be at this stage. I like this, okay? It's I'm gonna show you a map at the end to kinda give you an idea what we're talking about, but, like, we have people at each door. If you can see the guy walk through the door, and then you're like, "Hey, I got this guy, look, he's wearing a trench coat, and it's 110 degrees outside." Okay, copy. And you see him walk away, and you still see him, go ahead and keep an eye on him. You can still intercede if something happens. As he starts getting far away, the next guy at the next door can pick him up. "Yep, I see him. He's right here." We're all like, it's only I can't remember how far it is. It's like, 25 yards, 50 yards from door to door. It's not that far. You can clear that distance if you need to. I like that fixed surveillance where you pass it off, or the camera person. You can do a very loose tail, and the camera person can watch them through the cameras. And so you have this loose tail. So if something you're at least 20 feet away, and you can, like, take care of business if you need to. One person should be on point, right? Unless you can't get vantage points. So, as an example, we call point. If somebody walks through the door and they're suspicious, "Hey, I got a suspicious person come through door one," I'm on point. He's a white male, 6 foot, black hoodie, blue jeans, cowboy boots. He looks about 50 years old. And then dispatch will come and say copy or whatever, or somebody will acknowledge, "Yeah, we copy you." I'm still on point. He's walking towards the sanctuary. Okay, he's standing in front of the sanctuary. Don't hold the microphone down for more than a few seconds. Open it back up. I'm still on point. He's talking to the pastor. Still on point, still talking to the pastor. Okay, I'm on point. I'm going to lose him. He's walking to door two. Door two can come up. Door two, I've got him. I'm on point. He's walking towards me, and he's out the door. I'm losing sight of him. Is somebody in the parking lot pick him up? Yep, this is parking lot one. I've got him. He's walking towards a car. Somebody write down information for me. He's getting into a blue Chevy four-door, license plate 1A73561. He's away. Got it. Now you got your information. Go back to the pastor, find out what he was talking about. The pastor tells you he was saying, whatever disturbing things. Go back and write that up, and then try and get surveillance photos of it so you can keep an eye out when he comes back. That's usually how it goes down. That's your fixed surveillance. I like fixed surveillance because you don't have a surveillance train following him. You're still close enough if something happens. But what happens if he came up to the pastor and he looks suspicious and he's just like, "I've got troubles in my life. I want to know more." And then the pastor has that conversation, and the pastor says, "Why don't you come back at like 11 o'clock and we'll have he's afraid to come inside because he's afraid of people." And he goes, "Why don't you come back at 11 and then we'll talk more." "Okay, I'll come back at 11. "Okay, fine. Come and watch at 11 just in case he doesn't hurt the pastor." But everything looks normal. There are people that are just different. Broadcast your takeaways, just like what I talked about in that brief exchange that we talked about. Stand where it's obvious a person would normally stand. Don't stand like guys that are protecting the door. Don't stand right by the door. Like, people don't like normally stand there. Kind of stand off to the side. Grab another person and start talking to them. I've done that before. I've had somebody I know from the church. I'm like, "Hey, why don't you come over here for a minute?" And they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey, sorry, I'm just watching that guy over there. He's making me a little nervous. Just stay here and pretend like we're talking." They're like, "Oh yeah, let me see," And and some people like it. Just broadcast your observations or your lack thereof. You just want to keep people updated. He's still standing here. Still standing here. You're going to talk a lot, but you want to keep leaving open air so somebody can break in if they need to. You want to keep an eye out for counter surveillance. As an example, that active shooter, they were going from location to location, looking at different places to go kill people. What if they were working with somebody else? How I would do it is I would have my person go into a surveillance, and then I would do counter surveillance, looking for people surveilling them. That's a whole nother class, is looking at counter surveillance. When you have that fixed surveillance, everyone's going to take notes. Everyone's going to document what's going on, because eventually somebody's going to miss something, right? Have a cover story if someone talks to you that you don't know. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm standing here waiting for my friend." "What's your friend's name?" "My friend's Joe Smith." "Why are you asking so many questions?" "No, just kidding." Just have something like, in your mind, like, "Yeah, I'm waiting for my friend Joe to show up." make sure all your egress and ingress are covered, and that you have an alternate point in case something happens to you, right? Walking surveillance, there are gonna be times that you're gonna have to walk and follow somebody, that they may walk out into the parking lot, right? If you lose them, it's always gonna be in the first 15 seconds of them going on the move. So just keep that in mind. You wanna broadcast a description of that person, the direction that they were going, anybody that is with them, right? And keep people between you and then that target and avoid that surveillance train of everybody following them as they walk down the main corridor. Broadcast where they're walking to and don't act like church security if you don't have church security uniforms on. A lot of you guys don't have some kind of official uniform. So you dress like this with maybe a lanyard that says you work for the church, and that's about it. That's fine. If you're wearing a uniform, that's okay. I actually prefer that. I think that's great. I think we should all be doing that. I have done surveillance in a marked police car in uniform. It's not difficult. If I can blend in a black and white in a big city, in a very high crime area, in uniform, then you can do it as a church security role. Avoid following them into dead ends if you know that's you're lucky. You're gonna surveil one area. You know exactly what you're getting into. For some of us, like we worked in bigger cities, we don't know what we're getting into. We not familiar with every section of the city. So all of a sudden you come into a dead end, you're like, crap, now he knows I'm following him, right? For you at your church, you know exactly what you're getting into. If it looks like they're going into the parking lot, get someone into the parking lot ahead of time and in position so they can grab a license plate if it happens. We have parking lot attendants. Our parking lot attendants, the people that help people park, they come to our surveillance class and then they know that we can get up on the radio and say, hey, there's a guy leaving a blue Chevy pickup. I need the license plate, and they'll pick it up for us. I went online. I'm not going to show you my church's floor plan because, well, we believe in security. I just looked up church security floor plan, and this is what came up. There was a bunch of them. A lot of churches I knew too. Don't put your church floor plan online. We know that active shooters in the past have looked for that to help them decide where to kill people. As an example, they tell you exactly where the nursery is, right? The nursery's right there. Okay. So I know to go kill children, that's where I need to go. Or I can go to Family Life Center up here and kill children up here. Don't do that. Okay. Don't put it online, but they did. So I know that like I'll probably have somebody right in this section right here. If you look at my cursor on the map where it says lobby, okay, we know somebody will probably be here. If they walk in, they'll probably walk in this direction towards the sanctuary and then come over here. You'll probably have people stationed all around. You can stay put and watch them as they move through. If they get into an area that, let's say they come into the concourse and then you got conference rooms and stuff, you may want to follow them as they come into the concourse and then stay about 20 feet behind, keep people between you and them, and then just follow them as they go through the church. And most importantly, do not put all of this great intelligence on the internet for bad people to come look at. You want to be a welcoming church. That's why you have church greeters. All right. As a security team member, I act as a church greeter. I act like a church greeter. I welcome everybody coming in. And if they're suspicious, then I just go ahead and just keep an eye on them. And that's it. Remember, we don't want to interfere with people coming to Christ, but we do want to protect our flock too. I hope this helps. Do me a favor, leave a comment, share it with all your friends. The more people that see this, the better off we all are. Okay. And the more you share it, make a comment, do all that, the more the algorithm shares it to other people. That's it for now. And let me know in the comments, what else do you want us to cover? What else do you want to see? So that's all I've got for now. Stay faithful. You guys take care of yourselves.